Cash Physical Therapy Headquarters podcast. Today, we're doing something entirely different that's going to change this podcast forever. We brought in some friends to help make this the most valuable podcast for cash physical therapists in the world. Now, we wanted to shift everything around and kind of bring something new to this podcast, really for three reasons that I think all of us here agree with. Number one is we want to mentor cash physical therapists who don't have a mentor yet. There's not a lot of really great mentors that are out there. It's something that, we've all had tremendous success within our own businesses and within this industry, and we wanted to give back and help elevate the profession. Reason number two is we want to help motivate people with real stories in a really authentic way. So you're not going to get a bunch of warm and fuzzy, fluffy bullshit on this podcast. We're going to hit you with the reality of business, the reality of motivation, and what it actually takes to be successful within this game, to be able to live a life on your own terms in the world of cash physical therapy. And some of you honestly aren't going to fucking like it, and that's okay. But then number three, we want to teach you the most advanced and impactful growth strategies that are working inside of our own businesses today, from marketing and sales to AI to leadership to wealth building and just living life on your own terms. Now, we've all been extremely fortunate. We're extremely blessed within our lives. Each of us have built a multi-seven-figure business, either in our cash physical therapy practice or within our cash physical therapy mentorship community. It's allowed us to live life in a pretty damn cool way and help and serve thousands and thousands of people. I think between all of us, we're pulling in about $9 million a year. Just trying to run the math on that, but that's so there's not a whole lot of information that's out there that has the amount of perspective and experience that we'll be dropping here on this podcast. So ultimately, we want to give back, we want to motivate, and we want to show you what's working today so you can get to a point where you have time, mental, and financial freedom in your life, and you are able to do that without leaving the profession. So why don't we start here? Ben and I are bringing in three new co-hosts that are going to be with us every single episode moving forward. Let's start with Max Zirbel, one of the co-founders here at Clinical Marketer. So before we get into the meat, Max, you just want to real quick say like who you are, how we met, and what you're going to be bringing to the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been part of the team since day one. Jordan and I kind of started Clinical Marketer as young, hungry, fresh out of college individuals, and have really grown and developed a ton over that time as far as just the journey and that business takes you through. So I do a ton of the marketing here, a ton of the ads, a ton of AI stuff these days. So just been that phase of the team, helping with all the tech and making sure that the practices we work with see month over month growth.
Yeah, the genius behind the scenes that makes all of our shit work. For all of us inside of a lot of your practices too.
For sure.
Let's move it to Zaki. Who are you, man? Where did we meet? How did we become friends? What do you hope to bring?
Yeah, I'm Dr. Zaki Afzul. Me and Jordan actually met through the DMs on Facebook back in 2019, pre-COVID, and where I had just started my practice. I saw Jordan with Misfits. Him and Max were doing
Misfits, baby.
Misfits is a different name. And I reached out to him and kind of started learning about the ad game a little bit. And we kind of chatted then and saw that they were super hungry, young, cool dudes. And it's actually my first time putting out ads on Facebook, and the first time I saw a comment under there that called me a terrorist straight underneath a shoulder pain ad. But so that's how we met, and then since 2019 till now, was kind of growing my practice and started adding to my team, and my practice took a little bit of a different route where we really didn't start running paid advertising till last year. And I think we got to $1 million practice without running any paid advertising, all by resting on our laurels as clinical ninjas, as people that do workshops very well. We get a ton of referrals because of the way our patient experiences and everything. So, and then I joined the book program, and because I knew to scale we needed paid advertising, and they're like, you know what, we have this Clinical Marketer Live coming up next week. You should come. I'm like, all right, let's do it. And just being in the room, seeing everybody else in that room and seeing like how much paid advertising has done for them, even without the systems built that we have and everything else. I'm like, dude, if we get paid advertising, we lock it in. Like that's just adding gasoline on our already building fire. And that's exactly what it did. Over the next year, we had like a 40% growth. And then this year we're on pace for another 50% growth on top of that 40% growth. And a lot of it was the paid advertising, learning from the systems and being around people like ourselves. But like I said, I think it took me from being this like clinician mindset. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm a clinical master. Like that's kind of where I live at. But understanding this side and understanding what kind of impact I can make when I learn the systems and learn the advertising side of things, it's allowed us to help so many more people. And a lot of us have gotten in this business for that exact reason.
I love it, dude. I mean, it's crazy that we go back to 2019 when Max and I had our client wall in our living room. Pumped to see the whole journey, and now obviously being on the team, being part of the podcast. Pumped to have you here, man. It's going to bring a very different perspective to everything that Ben and I normally talk about. Will, same question to you, brother. How do we meet? Why are you here? Who are you? How do we become friends?
Yeah, so I'm William Schopp. I'm also a doctor of physical therapy. I own and founded the Movement Shop. We're a performance PT practice in South Bay of Los Angeles. Run a team-led 7-figure practice. So far, 7 clinicians. We're going to be adding 2 to 3 more over the next 6 months. So growing pretty well as well. Where did we meet? I don't remember, but I know I joined Booked because I wanted to learn ads. Learned ads. That was probably 3 years ago now. And then after Booked, I was like, all right, what's next? Done multiple coaching programs in the past, and they're great. Get your feet wet, and especially like getting things started. They're helpful. But like Zaki said, like just pouring fuel on the fire with paid ads and like business development. It was just a whole nother level. So finished Booked. And then I remember actually hopping on a sales call with you, Jordan. I think we had like an hour blocked for this sales call to join the mastermind. And I was like, I don't even need to be pitched, dude. Like, here's my card, first minute. And then we spent the rest like 59 minutes just talking about business and life and beers and, whatever else. And so it's fun. So I was in the mastermind for like a month, and then we decided that I needed to be a coach. And so I was in the mastermind for a month and then been coaching ever since. So that's pretty much my story. We're opening another practice in the next few months here. And we really want to scale this thing, 10 locations plus all up and down the West Coast. So that's kind of the game.
It was those shots of tequila with you and Ricky that sealed the deal, I think.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, we'll get to it in a second, but that's one of our precursors to hiring.
Yeah, I love it. Cool. So let's get into what we are going to be talking about here on today's episode. So the most common thing that we hear from cash physical therapy owners, especially when they're between like 12K to 25K a month in their practice, is, they say that they want to hire, but they can't afford to pay someone if the patients aren't there yet. Or they want to hire, but they're terrified to take that next step. And we all totally get that. That fear is very real, and it's a very big step for someone to take. But here's what nobody actually tells you. Staying solo in your business is actually far more expensive and far more risky if you continue to live and operate that way, because you become the ceiling. Every dollar that your practice makes is capped by the number of hours you personally have. So today, what all of us are going to do together is rip apart that fear, walk you through the exact frameworks for hiring a new cash physical therapist on your team who pays for themselves within the first 60 to 90 days, even less is possible, and show you why the owners who scale past 50K a month almost always say the same thing, that they wish they had started hiring so much sooner. And so first, I'm going to pass this over to Ben. I want to talk about what are the 3 biggest hiring mistakes that you see cash practice owners making, especially inside of the mastermind. So why don't you take it from there, Ben? What are the 3 biggest mistakes that you're seeing?
Yeah, I think you hit the first one right on the nail of the head with just waiting too long. Waiting too long to hire is what it comes down to. They wait until they're seeing like 25, 30 patients a week, and then they decide to hire. And that's a really tough spot. I mean, seeing 25 to 30 patients on top of trying to hire is really stressful because you're having to do figure out a time to get them to come in for interviews, doing phone calls, sourcing candidates on top of seeing 25 to 30 patients. You're probably also still doing all the inbound phone call, sales calls, all the marketing, seeing patients, doing everything. I think it's really important to figure out, begin with end in mind. How many patients do you want to be seeing per week? If it's like 15 to 20, like why scale up to 25 to 30 if you're just going to hire somebody on and then dial it back? You might as well, if you want to see 20 patients a week, that's your goal, start hiring when you're at 10. It does take, and that's the second mistake, is not just waiting too long, but not anticipating on how long it actually can take to find a really good PT in this industry as well. A lot of people are like, well, if I post, I don't want to post on a listing because they think they're going to get an applicant that's going to start next week. It's not the case. It's not like you turn on these listings and you get a flood of candidates. And that's the thing too, is a lot of people want to take, give their employer a month's heads up before they start. They also want to take some downtime between their next position. So just between that, from a logistical standpoint, of somebody wanting to give their employer a month heads up and 2 weeks in between, you're looking at 6 weeks minimum. That's if you not, and then you got the interviews at least 2 weeks to get through. You're looking at 2 months just from a logistical standpoint. That's if you posted a listing and you get somebody tomorrow. So that's the thing too, is underestimating on how long it actually takes. Another thing too is not having systems and processes, some processes and systems in place to allow them to be successful. Having modules on what does a good eval look like? What does the patient experience look like? Otherwise, you're just doing all one-on-one training while you're also trying to see 25 to 30 patients a week. So those are the most common mistakes I see PTs make on my end.
I love that. Zaki, you agree with those?
Yeah, I think a couple other things along with all of those is speaking directly to practice owners that have had trouble hiring. I realized that like the waiting too long to hire is it really one of the key things, but also waiting too long to even think about hiring is the other thing, right? Because the way we've done it that's worked really well for our practice is we've built like a social media presence over a long time that physical therapists look at and be like, oh shoot, I want to work here. Like, I want to learn from this guy. I want to work with the people they work with. So on top of being able to attract your ideal clientele, it can also attract your ideal employees to actually work there and want to grow. And I think that's something that we didn't even realize we were doing at the beginning. And then eventually when we start hiring people, and like we've never hired anybody off Indeed ever. We never had to. Every time we have a hiring spot, we put it out there on Instagram, or I start talking to people. I have 4, 5, 6 really good candidates almost ready to go right now. That's not even close to a bottleneck of ours, is finding the right person to hire. And it's because of the practice we built, and because of the reputation we built in town and reputation we built on social media. When they look us up, they can immediately see this is a place that values employees, that values high level care, and that is a growth mindset oriented. So it shoos away the people that are not going to be good fits, but really heavily attracts the people that are good fits.
I love that. And Max, that goes back to what we were talking about kind of before the episode of whether you like it or not, to compete in this new era of business, you have to see your company and your practice as a media company, not just for attracting patients, but also to differentiate yourself from all of the other, like, because every cash physical therapist is trying to hire a PT right now, and you need something to give yourself that edge. So that's brilliant. Have you actually had PTs come in who are like, I want to work for you guys just from the content?
All the time. I think we have people message us all the time. Hey, are you hiring? Are you hiring? The funny thing is, at the time, I jump on phone calls with them, even if we're not hiring, to figure out if they're a good fit. And then I have a bench. I have a bench of people that right now, I have like 4 people right now waiting to be like, hey, as soon as you have a job opening, let me know. I'll come and interview right away, and we'll make something happen. And I think the way I look at like the social media side is this: if you're not telling your own story on social media, somebody else is writing it for you. Right? Whether it's other shitty PT practices, whether it's other patients writing it for you, that's a beautiful thing about social media and the way it's kind of working right now is you have your own destiny in your hands to write your story and to put out your message the exact way you want. And not how other people have had previous experiences in PT or with other employers and stuff. You can write it the way you want. And if that's not empowering enough for you to pick up a camera and talk in front of it once in a while or showcase what you're doing, I don't know what is.
True that. And Will, I know you recently started doing this where you're hammering the content. You're crushing it right now, putting on some really, really good stuff on your Instagram. Tell us about, walk us through the initial stages of that thought process. I know that's a big piece of your strategy moving forward.
I think the main thing is like I don't like social media. Like I don't like doing it a ton. Like I love talking about this stuff and like a conversation like this, but talking in front of a camera is just always super uncomfortable for me. But it's just one of those things that's going to help grow the company. And like, it's a skill that you can develop over time. And like for everybody that's listening to this, that's, maybe just starting out, or like you are a solo provider, you don't have that following, like you don't have that brand yet. Well, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. Mm-hmm. And so if you wait any longer, it's just going to delay the benefit of what you're actually going to be doing it for. And so, like if you're solo, like I think one of the things that I talk to a lot of clinic owners about is, not feeling like you're ready to hire because you're still learning the business and you're still learning how to do this stuff. And so you have imposter syndrome. But the thing is like you can go into those first interviews as practice. Like even if you're interviewing somebody, you're not quite ready, which you probably are. You can use it as practice interviews so you can get some under your belt so you can kind of know what you're doing and get your feet wet a little bit. And the other thing is transparency always wins. And so if you find somebody that's like totally an A player and like you want them on the team, you can just be totally transparent and be like, hey dude, like, listen, I'm building this thing, from scratch. Like I'm learning as we go. Like, here's the deal. Like, I'm going to give you some grace. Please give me some grace. And like, let's build this thing together, and then that's going to create such a strong bond with that first employee, that first team member, that they're probably going to stick with you forever. And then you kind of learn things as you go.
100%. I want to layer in one mistake that Max and I have made repeatedly that we're not going to make again. That I want to get each of your perspectives on. Max, why don't you tell us about some of the hiring mistakes that we've done?
Yeah, I mean, the ones that sting the most are like hiring friends and family. It's always that fine line, and I know I've heard stories of how it works out incredibly sometimes, but it's also one of those ones that can always come back to bite you harder than anything else. So that's the first one that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, 100%. We're never hiring friends again. You and I are like anomalies where we're like best friends before we started working together, but we also have worked enough with each other on enough businesses where we understand how to communicate with one another and how to like complement each other when like we're down, the other one kind of picks up the slack and vice versa. But I see a lot of PTs who are eager to hire. They're rushing to hire because they have a buddy or someone in town that they know is a great clinician that they're just like, I need to get this going so I can bring them on board. And I've heard a lot of horror stories when that happens because it's really, really hard to hold someone accountable who is your friend before that happened. And for us, it has never worked out. It has made every good friendship we've had become tainted when they couldn't perform at the level that was required. So I'm curious, open floor, any opinions on working with friends and bringing on people just because you know them and they seem like great clinicians?
Yeah, I think when it comes to that regard, as like the CEO and owner of a practice, your number one priority is the health of that practice and the health of that business. And I think what ends up happening is when you start looking into the mindset of like, hey, I want to hire this friend because they're my friend, I know them, you start losing sight of your number one priority, which is the health of that business. Because the reason why you're a good friend or you are friends with this person is because you're willing to sacrifice and make compromises with this person because you know they'd be willing to do that for you too. Yeah. So at that point, it's not just you making the sacrifice and compromise anymore. It's your business now making the compromise. It's now the next hires you bring on making the compromise. It's now every patient you work with now making the compromise because the business is what brings all those things together. So I think with that mindset, understanding that it's not just as easy as I'm a friend, let's bring this on, I know them. It's like the qualities that make a friendship good and a friendship long lasting aren't always the qualities that are needed in the business. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing people need to understand and think about beforehand, because in a business, there's like in the friendship, there's not a ton of like big time risk, right? It's like, if I don't like this person, I just stop responding to their text. I block them on this, we're done, right? Like, but when it comes to a business, the amount of risk you're taking on, if things go wrong, really do need to be calculated in a way that is intelligent and in a way that's protecting not only your livelihood, because this business you built is your livelihood now, but also the livelihood of anybody else you hire and anybody else that's, been impacted by your business. So I think it's, looking back at it, the one sentence is like, it's a lot bigger than you now. It's not just about you, risk you're willing to take. Like, think about everything that it's affecting and possibly can affect at a business level.
100% agree. It feels like some people are eager to hire someone on just because they almost they just want help. They just want someone else there to share the emotional load of running a business. And it leads to really hasty decisions that might be, quote unquote, good for the patients because they're great clinicians, but is it good for the business? And if it's not good for the business, it's not good for your family. And then that tension is going to just grow and grow and grow because you're realizing that you're hemorrhaging money and your life is really hard because you have this one person on your team that you can't tell the truth.
Yeah, if you just look at a percentage, if you just look at like a number standpoint or percentage basis, likelihood that your friend is the best person for the job for your business out of all the pool of PTs out there that are candidates for that position is very, very low. So that's the thing too, is just look from a numbers and percentage standpoint of likelihood of that being the.
And speaking of numbers and percentages, Will, I'm curious on your perspective on the biggest mistakes you're seeing some people make when they're hiring as it relates to numbers. Like, when are people actually like ready to hire? What are the indicators that you're looking for that's like, okay, this is actually like a safe call to make?
Yeah. I mean, like, just transitioning from that, it's like we hire and fire based off culture and skills. And so like, just putting a bow on what we just talked about, it's like I actually am the opposite, where like we actually hired one of my best friends, but it wasn't because he was one of my best friends. He was the perfect culture fit and had the skill sets that we needed to develop. And so like, that was first and foremost. The fact that he was my friend just happened to be. And so like, if he didn't have those skill sets, like, there's not a chance that we would have brought him on. And so that was 4 years ago at this point. It was the best decision ever. He's our clinic director. He runs it day to day, like, just an absolute stud. And so, but just being a friend does not qualify somebody. And so having the skill set, like, that was the most important thing.
I remember we had a conversation about that where there are very clear expectations that were set at the very beginning of that. So Max and I are proof that it can work. You're proof that it can work. Ben, you got one of your best friends. Are they still working with you in San Diego?
He was the first PT that I hired ever in Oakland. He was with me for 2 years. We had a great relationship. Still do to this day. It's not damaged at all from that. Still one of my best friends. We just went different ways because we just realized like this is working, but we also just realized like the risk of it going wrong is still always going to be there. And both of us just couldn't sleep great at night, knowing that is a possibility of this. Like, yes, it's going well, but how long is this actually going to be potentially? And we just didn't want to sacrifice that as well. And we just moved different ways, and it worked out really well. And I probably wouldn't have the practice I do today without him, because he was the first PT I hired, and it worked out really well. And he converted so well that it set a great precedent for every. I think Zaki was talking about this. Like, the first hire also sets the precedent for your next hire, and he did a really good job of setting the standard of what conversions should be. He actually converted even better than I did, and so that was the new standard that we were able to hold all the PTs to going forward. That he really set the tone. So it worked out really well. But he's no longer with us. But he's still one of my best friends, if not my best friend. So it worked out.
I love it. So going back to Will, we know that this can work. Like, what are the requirements to make that work? So a lot of people have someone on deck that they want to give an opportunity, but most people don't set those expectations. So how do they do that?
Yeah. I mean, I think the main thing is hire for two things. Like, you have to hire and fire on culture and skills. And like, a lot of the skills you can develop, but they have to have the personality that they can, develop those skills, whether it's not there now, but if you have the skills to train it and they're willing to learn, then it could be a great hire too. But we hire and fire on culture. Like, we always make a joke, but it's actually not a joke that, like, in the interview, we always ask people, we ask them like what their favorite drink is. And, we ask them like their snacks and food and all that kind of stuff. We get them like a welcome basket when they start. But the real reason is like, we don't really want to work with somebody that we can't go have a beer with or go grab lunch with and chat for an hour or two about whether it's things at work or just life in general. And it's super important because it creates this really strong culture. And what people don't realize is, if you're not intentional about your brand and your culture, then it's probably not going to be good. And the reason is because whether you know it or not, or like it or not, you have a culture, you have a brand. Like, it's not like if you have one or not. Everybody has one. It's just, is it strong, or what does it represent? And so you want to be able to build that and do it as strong as you can. But as an owner, as a founder, we can influence our culture and we can influence our brand, but we don't have full control over it. Like just like our clients control our brand, our team controls our culture, right? And so we can influence it from the top, but it really depends on who you hire, who you bring on. That's going to have the biggest impact on it. And so to answer your other question, like, when do you know that you're ready to hire? Well, like what Ben said is, like, if you want to be at like 10 to 15 visits a week and you're seeing 25, like, it's time to hire. Because if you have a profit problem, like, that's the pricing problem. So like, one of the biggest mistakes that I think owners make is they wait until they have a certain profit to hire somebody. But you're not going to hire for profit. You're hiring to get yourself time back. If you have a profit problem, you have a pricing problem or a visit length problem, right? And so don't wait until you have a certain number in the bank to hire somebody. To this day, knock on wood, we've hired seriously over 15, 20 people at this point, and we have never lost money in the first month of bringing PT on. We just brought this guy on in May, and the first month that he came on, he brought in almost 40K. And so it's like, they have all these openings on the schedule. So if your marketing's dialed in, you can get the leads coming in and the evals come in. They're going to crush that first month because they have all these open spaces for evals. And so we only, like, every time the schedule hits 82% booked, we hire somebody, we bring another PT on.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think there's one element to it that I think we're missing, because one thing that I noticed is a lot of folks are trying to hire way too early. They have the volume, but they don't have the profit. And they think bringing on another PT is going to solve their profit problems. You want to talk to that?
Yeah, for sure. Like, typically what we see is, like, the first couple hires is not going to solve a profit problem. The first couple hires are to buy back your time so that you can go spend your time on your, like, natural ability, which maybe is marketing or sales or finances or creating relationships or whatever. But you really don't start, like, making profit and getting down to, like, being able to see 0 patients until PT number 3 or 4. And the reason is because you have all your overhead. You have your rent, all your labor costs, of course, your admin, if you have a sales team, your ad spend, your marketing, your other business expenses, like, those all have to fit in, plus the labor costs of the clinician. And so if you, like, really want to make some serious money, you need at least 3-4 PTs before you can really drop yourself back to, like, 0 to 5 or 10 or, whatever, 0 patients. And then after that, then each PT after like 4 or 5, you're running like 70-75% margins on, because all that they have is labor costs. Like, there's economy of scale there.
Yeah,
if you got a profit problem before you hire, it's only going to get worse. Like, you don't even have your biggest expense. Your labor is going to be your biggest expense once you hire somebody. So if you've got a profit problem, when it's just it's not going to be, it's only going to get worse. You might even be negative at that point. Yeah. That's like kind of what Will said. That's just a pricing strategy issue at that point.
Yeah, if you have a profit problem, you have a pricing issue, right? Like, you're not charging enough, and so, like, your margins aren't there, or you have a funnel problem. Like, if you have a certain number of leads coming in, but you're only getting 10% of your leads on the packages, or you're going to be spending a ton of money on marketing, but you're not going to be closing any, and that's where you're generating your revenue. But it's those visits, it's that average visit rate. That's going to be the biggest difference, because once you determine what you're going to pay somebody, like Ben said, that's going to be your biggest expense is your labor.
Zaki, anything to add to that?
No, I think everything they said hits the nail on the head. I think when it comes to hiring that first person, like Will said, it gives you the ability to find someone that's going to amplify the culture you're already trying to build. But realistically, if you're a solopreneur, like I was at solopreneur, I was at 95% profit margin in the gym by myself. Like, that gives you the ability and room to add people too. But if you're a solopreneur and you're at even like 40% margins, you're going to add somebody to that and you're kind of cooked. Like, you're not going to have the ability for these guys to grow. You're going to be so stressed worrying about keeping the revenue up, and you're not going to have time to train them. They're going to be neglected, and they'll be like, this is not what I signed up for. I thought this is a growing company, this and that. So I agree 1,000%. It's not, if you have profit issues before you hire, it's only going to lead to you thinking, hey, the hiring I didn't find the right person. My hiring process is messed up, when you need to take a step back and be like, hey, me by myself, I was not set up for success because I'm not profiting the way I need to.
Yeah, and one last thing too is like if you do have that profit problem before you hire and it's because you have a funnel issue, like maybe you're not good at sales or something like that. Well, the problem is if you hire, you're going to transfer your knowledge and your skill set to your new clinician who is also then going to not be good at sales.
Yeah.
And so like then you're going to have a real problem. And so this isn't to say like, to scare people from hiring. It's the opposite. It's just get really good at sales, get really good at the skill that you're missing so that you can be proficient at it so that when you do bring somebody on, you can train them and they can crush.
Yeah. And you need to have your pricing dialed in before you like the worst thing that can happen is you don't have super high profit, but you hire somebody and then you're like, shit, I'm in the red because I'm not charging enough. And then you have to go and change your pricing. And when you hire a PT, so many of them have money mindset issues that even if you were charging $125 well below than what you should be, there's still gonna be money mindset issues that you're gonna have to overcome with your PT. And then you raise your rates to what you need to, like 200 plus above. Now they finally started working on getting over the money mindset, $125. Now you're telling us 200, you got to do it again. Like that's really tough too.
Yeah. And the number of people who
now you're just instilling money mindset issues instead of fixing them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And especially, go ahead, Max.
I was going to say, like, wherever the chaos is in your business, that's when you hire, that's what you're going to scale. So if your lead flow is inconsistent and now you bring on a new hire, well, now that inconsistent lead flow is going to be even more chaotic in your business. So whether it's pricing, sales, money, mindset, lead flow, wherever the chaos is in your business, when you add someone on, you're going to scale that as well.
100%. So there's a combination of people need to hire sooner, but also like they're hiring way too soon and they're not actually ready for it. Whether or not they have the systems, whether or not they have the right pricing, whether or not they have a core defined culture and what they're trying to create, like all these things need to happen. And people should start building that as early as possible within their practice so that when they are ready to hire, they're able to pull the trigger on that. So there's nothing that's going to lose an A player or repel an A player faster than having really sloppy systems and an owner who thinks just because they have patient volume, that means that they are good enough or of a caliber to attract like the best clinicians. So we got to have those things in place. And so to build into the next topic that I want to talk about here is one mistake that I know we've saved a ton of people from is overpaying their people, where they think that if the offer is high enough, the clinician that they brought on is going to be hyper motivated to help grow the business. So I'm going to pass that one over to Zaki. What are your thoughts on offer letters, what you should be paying your PTs, making sure you're recruiting the right people and charging the right stuff?
Well, first and foremost, I think if the person you are hiring is only directly motivated by money, probably not a good fit. Not saying they're not going to make great money with you, not saying they're not going to eventually grow into where you need them to be, but it's almost always a red flag because, if they're only, money driven, then they can go work in home health. They can go get PRN at a SNF. They can make good money in these other places that might even be less demanding than our jobs are. Because when I hire somebody, I make sure to let them know, like, it's not an easy path. Like the standards we hold you to and the standards we want you to hold yourself to are very much higher than the rest of the PT profession because we demand that of ourselves and we put ourselves in a position where our patients are demanding that from us because they're paying us cash for our services. So if they're starting off only money motivated, it's going to be really tough to break them from that and really tough to almost ever get them to be satisfied with where they're at. What I feel like they need to have is you're trying to find alignment. You're trying to find alignment with not just like how much money they're going to make, but like what person are they going to become working with? What lifestyle are they going to be able to build themselves up to throughout the process? So I think what's really important is on the interview and as you build out like an offer letter, outlining them the exact process of how they financially grow. Not necessarily, it shouldn't be the person that's looking for more money now, but like you do need to give them a pathway and a visual and a written down pathway of like, this is how we typically project our PTs growing in a salary sense and in a benefit sense, everything like that. This is what we expect you to kind of go along. And that way it gives them a vision. It gives them something they're growing towards. It always gives them like a light to follow versus empty promises and say, don't worry, I'll take care of you. Like when things get good, I'll take care of you. And that to me is you're leaving expectation on the table that you're trying to set, but you're leaving the interpretation of the expectation to them to set. And unless you're having meetings every day, you don't know how that expectation is evolving in their head. You don't know if they think, oh, we should have already had this conversation. And then slowly silent resentment starts building and more doubt starts building if this is the right place for them. In your mind, like, oh, they're doing great. I told them I'll take care of them. That's going to be in 3 months, where they're thinking it should have already happened. So to get on the same page when it comes to what that's going to look like is really important. And in my mind, I think that the ability to pay somebody what they're worth, that's the cool thing about our practice, is that we have in general like an exact number of how much revenue they can bring in. And we can detail to them along the way of like, hey, these are the risks we take as a practice over what like an in-network practice takes when it comes to like patients on your schedule. This is how the process kind of goes to. So this is how our salary structure is built out to ensure you have a job moving forward, to ensure you have a path growing and moving forward. So I think Will already mentioned at the beginning, like transparency is everything and clarity is everything. So I think the biggest mistakes I made early on was not having that transparency and clarity of what that's going to look like. And that cost me potentially some good PTs, but it was a lesson worth learning.
I love that. I love that, especially like framing it around like selling them on who it is they're going to become and selling them on the journey that you're going to take them on, rather than on this price point, which is never, ever going to be high enough. Because it might sound amazing when they take it, but in 1 year, when they become used to it, they're going to want more. And so there has to be other variables that are in there to attract and retain the best people, because there's always going to be someone who can charge more. I know in clinical marketing, I'm curious if any of you guys do this. Every new person that we're bringing on, we have them complete a team vision survey. Like, what is the life that you want to create? What is your ideal job? How much are you making? What does your week look like? And then based around that vision survey, we basically tell them, like, here's the roadmap of how we intend to try to get you here. And so we're able to paint that like vision of where they're going to go and how we're going to work for them to get them to that point. And that has been, we've attracted some incredible people onto this team because we take that approach and we position, we're working for them. This is the life that they want to have. They're helping us create the life we want to have. We're going to die on the hill trying to make sure that they get what they want out of life too. And that's been incredibly, incredibly good for us. Ben, curious on when you're putting together an offer letter, like how should people be thinking about like how much they should actually be offering a PT? Because a lot of people just choose a pie in the sky number, usually the number that they would personally want to have, not realizing that your employees do not think like entrepreneurs. They want different things and are willing to accept very different things.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think it's like self-projecting what you value onto them. So for example, like it might seem like 25 patients a week for us might seem everything else. And so one of the mistakes that people make is like, well, I can only handle 25 patients. So I'm only going to expect my PT to see 20, 25 patients. And when you do that, you're drastically lowering the amount of revenue that they're generating per week, per month, per year, that you aren't going to be able to pay them a good rate, a good salary rate, because your labor costs are too high. And so don't self-project, because at the end of the day, your 25 seems like a lot because you're doing everything in the business. They're not having to do the marketing. They're not having to do the phone calls. Like their entire job is just treating patients, and so our PTs are expected to see, on average, they see about 32 patients, 32 to 33 a week. And that's very manageable for them. Like they get 7 hours of documentation time every single week, and they don't even need 7 hours. Like it's cash pay. You don't need to take very little time, right? So it's very, very manageable. But if I was only to require 25 hours, I would not be able to pay people 6 figures because the revenue generation is so low. So that's another mistake that I see people make. But to answer your question, you want our total labor costs for the entire team is, you want, for a healthy business, you want it to be 45%, including taxes. So this is something too that people make mistakes. Well, labor costs can go up to 45%. I'm going to pay my PT 45% of what they generate, including
no bonuses.
Taxes. And the issue is, well, what if you want to hire on a front desk? You're already at that 45%. Now you hire a front desk, now you're at 55% labor costs, right? And now you have this conversation. Well, all right, now my profit's not where it needs to be. Doing to have this uncomfortable conversation about lowering to see more, which they then initially agreed upon. Right. And so that's the really tricky part. So we've got a hiring calculator if you guys want it. Go and comment below if you guys want that. We'll happy to get that over to you guys on it. But it breaks down how many visits are they expected to see, what are you charging and generating per. So on top of that, like it'll give you a range of like what you can comfortably pay somebody, especially if you want to take into account like benefits. Are they going to get PTO, holidays, stuff like that? So that's kind of a super high level overview of it.
Yeah. Would you say a good ballpark for people to start with is you should pay your PT 25 to 30% of the revenue they generate in a year?
That's a good way to put it. Because when you throw in taxes, you're gonna be well below that. You're gonna be right around that 40.
Now you have wiggle room for bonuses, other incentives, team stuff, all that jazz.
Yeah,
I love it.
25 to 30% is a good range. You can go up to that 30%, top of that 30% mark, but you also have to, if you start somebody at that 30% mark, just know you're gonna have to increase your rates before too long to be able to, when a year comes around and they want to raise, now you're gonna be at 31, 32. So you also have to begin with that in mind on it. Yeah. So something to think about.
Love it. I'm gonna pass it over to Will here. And then I want to talk about marketing because that's everyone's biggest fear. It's really, I feel like I can hire someone, but at any point I know referrals and my workshops could just dry up and then left high and dry and have to basically let go of this person. So we're going to talk about marketing and pass this over to Max here in a little bit and have some discussion around that. But let's talk about those benefits. So we have some formula to come up with. What does the salary need to look like? What should those bonuses look like to kind of link back to what Zaki was saying about you got to be able to offer more than just salary and kind of paint like here's the benefits that you're going to get, but also here's those like intangibles that you're also going to get by working here.
Yeah. I mean, I think the bonuses are super important. Like we try to keep our PT salary at like 90% base salary and then 10% for bonuses. And the reason is because a lot of PTs like stability. And like, I was actually just talking to somebody about this in the mastermind yesterday. I had a gem call with him and one of the problems with his comp structure was the base salary was a little bit too low and there was too much relying on the bonuses. And his thought process was, when I was a staff clinician, I wanted that like high opportunity to make all these bonuses. And then, but what I told him was, but then you don't want to hire you, right? Like the reason that you're doing what you're doing is because you're not built for like that staff clinician role. But you don't want to hire you. You want to hire people that are in that staff clinician role that do want that stability. They have that ambition, but like the ambition to grow a team and to grow the brand, not to grow themselves. And so giving them that stability is super important. So like all of our bonuses are not based off of quantity metrics. So it's not like see more people, make more money. They're all quality-based metrics. And so like our bonuses are based off of like continuity programs sold, Google reviews, NPS scores, continuity packages and memberships, word of mouth referrals. And so they just have to do better to make more money. They don't have to do more to make more money. And so like, because for us, it's like, there's a baseline, that they have to perform just to be on the team anyways. And so like for people that are like bonuses, like that do bonuses based off like initial package sales, well, to me, that's their job. That's why they are there. And so if they're not performing at the standard, not only are they not getting a bonus, but they're not going to be on the team in the first place. And so you have to have those standards set like really strong and really high. And then bonuses can be on top of that based off of quality of care, based off of, quality of everything that they're doing, not just quantity of things. So that just leads to burnout. And then, there's not much point of that anyways.
I love it. Anything to add, Zaki, Ben, Max?
Yeah, I think I agree with Will 1,000% on that. Is that there needs to be set expectations of exactly what this role has, and that's where like the job description comes out, right? That's where protecting yourself by putting that all in writing of exactly what you're expecting from this person. And then so we bonus on like Google reviews as well, because that's showing that they're doing a great job. It does help us on the SEO side as well, but it's just a quick quality check. And then we have expectations on what like a quote unquote full schedule looks like for our PT. So they also get bonused on like utilization rate above that, but we don't bonus off like, oh, if you're above 100%, we give you this much. Cause that's just adding hours onto their plate versus like within the expectations we have. And we base that off of, what our revenue per visit is and like what we want to be able to make on average per clinician that we hire at like a full schedule. And then on top of that, I'm willing, and that's a big reason the culture is what it is. I'm willing to share that pie as they do more than that. right? And I think that's what keeps people around a long time. And I think that's what like keeps people understanding like, hey, this is a provider first company. I try to say that multiple times with our people we hire. We're not a patient first company. We're a provider first company. Because if you guys are taken care of, you guys feel in alignment, I know for damn sure the patients are going to be taken care of, because that's all we got into this practice and in this profession in the first place, to take care of people. That shouldn't be something that has to be stated. We're patient first. Of course we are. We don't, like, that's a given. But we're a provider first company. We want to make sure they feel supported, they feel aligned. The bonuses don't feel like a stick, like a carrot on a stick. It feels like something that's actually achievable and that we want them to achieve, not that like, hey, oh shit, I got to pay bonuses this month. When my people make bonus, I'm like, fuck yeah, I get to pay bonuses this month because that means they did phenomenal.
Oh yeah. That's gold. That's gold. I hope you're all writing stuff down, folks, between Will and Zaki on how they're leveraging like their bonuses so that it's based off of like them being better, not working harder. I think that is a huge paradigm shift that people haven't considered before. So let's transition here. The final segment here. I want to talk about marketing, because that's really where I think the source of a lot of people's fear is. There's of course the leadership and responsibility fear that comes with that. But I think if people were certain that they could fill people's schedules, that fear would be greatly diminished. So I want to transition over to Max. Now, Max, you have personally helped manage millions and millions of dollars in patient acquisition, marketing, and paid advertising. So, I mean, you've helped, and Zaki, how many people have you hired this year with the help of Facebook ads?
4
people. Because you have a system to predictably bring people in. How much are you spending on ads now? I'm curious.
We are at like 25,000 a month.
25,000 a month on ads. What do you know what your ROAS is?
Over the last quarter, it was just under 5, like 4.8.
That's nuts. 100 over 6 figures in new patient revenue every single month from Meta ads. So Max, let's turn it to you. What should PT practice owners looking to hire know about like running Meta ads, what's working, and like why is that the best way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I think the first and foremost, just kind of bring this full circle on, we talked a lot about like kind of like maybe why hiring might be scary or the drawbacks of it. But I think, Zaki, just without maybe even knowing it, hit it on the head right there. It's like, it's all about knowing your numbers, right? So if we know our funnel constraints, if we know how many leads end up in a package and how many leads we need to fill a higher schedule, as well as exactly what our return is on our different channels from investment. But I think we talk about Meta ads specifically in any paid advertising platform. So Meta, Google, TikTok, if you're into that. The great thing is just like the scalability of it, right? So like Zaki, I'm not sure what you were spending, but you probably weren't spending 25 grand a month 6 months ago. So, the ability to scale that up and like, oh, we're going to need 4 hires, in the first quarter of this year, the first 6 months of this year. Here's what we need to spend in order to maintain that from the gaps we're filling in their schedule with Meta ads. So the scalability of it, right? Where it's like, we could maybe you have the capacity to double your workshops this month. Maybe you have you can't always just double our referrals this month, but you can always double your budget this month. Especially if we know our numbers and we know we're profitable, we know, okay, if I get, 10 leads, I know that 3 of them are going to end up coming in for packages. So, knowing your numbers, I think all around makes this easier, but especially when we're talking about paid advertising, knowing the funnel constraints throughout the funnel. So from how many leads we get, how many of those get on discovery calls, how many of those book evals, how many show up for evals, how many of those evals turn into packages. That baseline of lead to package is going to be, vital for you to know this, and then makes it really easy to calculate ROAS when we know that as well.
Love that. Now, when you guys first started, like, Zaki, when you started running ads this year, like how was it terrifying to start scaling up the budget? Because I know your numbers and you knew that, okay, to hire this person, I need this many visits, this many calls, this many leads. Was it hard for you to just dial it up, or?
Not really. I think the confidence in our ability to train our therapists the way we need to be to make sure that they're ready for leads as they come in was a really big thing as well. Making sure like the onboarding process is really streamlined. They understand like we have videos that built out that they watch that indoctrinate them with the things that we need them to learn. That was something that added a lot of confidence for me. But then also, like you said, it is a numbers game. And I think the hardest thing as human beings we have when it comes to leading a team, when it comes to making decisions, is like we're emotional, right? We want things to work so bad, but we spend so much time thinking about what if it doesn't work, right? I've never heard the first thing people ask, like, well, what if it does work? It's always like, well, what if it doesn't, right? And and at the end of the day, like, if that's what's leading your decisions, you're going to stay stuck for a long time. Right? When you have numbers to look at that are devoid of emotion that you can take and completely separate from the feeling in your gut, the feeling here, I think that's when you can make moves on things and scale the way you want. Because at that point, you're not basing it off of how you feel that day, right? I might wake up one day and, last night my favorite NBA team won, and that day I'm ready to conquer the world, and it has nothing to do with how my practice is doing. So whether it's the highs or the lows, I think they need to be separated from the ability for you to look at your numbers, look at them as objectively as possible. And sometimes those numbers, you look at them and they're worse than what you think they are. And it's kind of a gut punch and you don't even want to face it. Like, shit, like everyone thinks I'm successful. I look at these numbers and they're not that, right? And so I got to keep putting on this image, but like, who are you performing for, right? So like really look at your numbers, whether they're good, whether they're bad, work on them. But until you can really look at them without the performative mask you put on of the person you think you are, you're going to have a hard time really separating emotion and like making good decisions based on the numbers you see.
Yeah. And Zaki brought up a good point about, what if it does work? And Jordan talked about, used the word fear. I have a bigger fear. I mean, Zaki was able to generate, based on his numbers, 125K over the last month from Facebook ads. I have a bigger fear of not being able to generate 125K. That's a bigger fear than the spend on it, right? That's my biggest fear is I'm missing out on 125K if I don't do this, right? So channel where that fear is actually going, where that's coming from.
Love that. Will, Max, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think just knowing your numbers is super important. Like for us, it's like I know that we get about 30 to 33% of our leads to packages every single month. And so we need about 25 leads per PT per month, and then sell one continuity package per week per PT. And we're going to hit our revenue and we're going to hit our profit. And the whole system is going to be working. And, we have people in place. We have our marketing department. We have our sales department. We've got our clinic, our fulfillment team, our admin team. And so like now it's like my whole role is I just basically sit there as a director of all of those departments and see, okay, what KPI is missing, and then how can I help them develop that and get it to where it needs to be? Because I know if we get 25 leads per PT, we get 33% of them into packages every single month, and our continuity hits, we're going to be able to scale forever.
Love it.
Just to pile on that really quick. Just hearing someone like William talk, like who knows his numbers inside and out and just like so well, it's really fun. It becomes a really fun job. It's off. I'm going to airdrop myself. My only job this week. I don't have to worry about anything else. My job is to fix that one number. And I know that if I fix that number and when I fix that number, we're going to crush our goals. And that's when business gets, really fun and exciting, at least for me anyway.
Right. Yeah. Once you see the numbers and it kind of demystifies everything, like, okay, I know if I hire 4 people, I have a 7-figure business. In order to hire 4 people, I need this many packages sold. I need this many evaluations, this many calls, and this many leads. And now the game becomes, it's like, okay, my only focus is how do I get these leads up and balance out the rest of these numbers as quickly as I possibly can, so I can get to that point where I have that like time freedom and I can start giving back to other people and teaching people how I did it,
Yeah, Charlie Munger said it best, man. Just invert everything. Invert all your thinking and you reverse engineer everything, and you can build whatever you want.
Right. Beautiful, everybody. Well, that is our time. This is episode 100 of the Cash Physical Therapy Headquarters podcast. It's going to look and feel very different every episode moving forward. So make sure you go to your favorite place for listening to podcasts or go to YouTube and subscribe to the channel for new content and training on what's working in the world of cash physical therapy every single week.